Vedanth, and welcome to my podcast. Today, my guest is Supreetha. She is a pilot. In my previous episode, we learned about how an airplane is designed, and today we will talk about how it is to fly an airplane. Hi, Supreetha. Welcome to my show.
Hi, Vedant.
So, Supreetha, you are a pilot. I'm curious to know how you get directions for your flight. Do you have a special type of Google Maps for planes?
We use the GPS. That is the primary mode of navigation that we have. So before we get onto the airplane, we are given some papers that contains our flight plan. So the flight plan has all the points that you're going to fly over. Other than that, we also have something called as radio navigation. And we also have standby compass in case GPS fails and radio navigates fail. So we have a standby compass, we have gyros. Yeah, so we have many navigational aids, primary being GPS.
Wow, that's super interesting. Are there traffic signals in the air?
It's really nice to fly, Vedant, because nobody really breaks the rules. You're constantly talking to the air traffic controllers and they know your path. So they know you're going from point A to point B to point C. They have your route with them. So in case you need to deviate, you have to tell them. And in case they want you to, deviate, they will let you know. So there's no traffic signal as such, but you are following instructions either from your flight plan or from the ATC.
And are there police?
There is no police, but if you make a mistake and you don't tell them, you will be asked a lot of questions.
Whoa, you need to be careful.
Yes, you need to be very alert, you need to keep monitoring, and you need to be in contact with the ATC.
How does the plane connect with the radio tower?
So we have equipment on the aircraft, which is a transmitter, which sends the radio signals, and a receiver. And this is received by the ATC towers. So ATC has its own installations where they receive your communication.
I always thought there was an antenna on the plane, but I couldn't see it.
There are 3 antennas on the plane. There are 2 on top and 1 at the bottom. So that is the receiver transmitter that I told you about that sends the radio waves of a particular frequency, and it is received by the air traffic controllers.
Wow. Whenever I travel by a plane, I ask to see the captain in the cockpit. I am wondering, why is the cockpit called the cockpit?
So it has to, there are many explanations to it actually, 2 major ones. One is that they used to create a sort of pit for these birds, these male, the cocks to fight. And that is also called a cockpit. So it's said that during World War One, the Air Force pilots called their where they used to fly from the cockpit, because it used to be it's difficult to be flying from that small space that they sit in, and there's a lot of fighting that's happening because they're fighter pilots. So that is what they used to call the space that they sat in. Also, it is said that it has to do with the pit in the ship where they used to control the movement of the ship, rather where they used to sail the ship from. So there are many explanations to it. However, now the most common word we use when we sit is the flight deck.
I have seen that there are so many buttons and levers in the cockpit. Why are there so many? And there are some buttons behind the captain and on the ceiling. How do you reach them while flying?
Okay, so there are 2 people the minimum 2 people in the aircraft, the airliners. So you're supposed to be able to reach the overhead panel, and that is how you should be sitting, so you can reach it. Also, the seat is adjustable. You can pull it up, push it down, and the buttons at the back are essentially circuit breakers. So in case there's a fault in the electrical system, those small buttons pop out. You don't need to reach them at all times. Some of them we can push back, but one of us has to get out for it while the other one is flying. That we don't use mostly because most of it comes under the maintenance, but what we have to deal with is what is in front of us, in between us, and above us. At all times we have to be able to reach them.
Wow. How do you avoid bumping into tall towers or buildings while flying, especially when it is dark or cloudy?
uh, the flight path that I told you, the flight plan that takes you from point A to B to C, are designed such that they are away from the tall towers and the buildings and all of that. So you don't necessarily have to be able to see them. You need to maintain your flight paths, and then you need to fly. Yes, at times because of weather, when you deviate, you have to be careful that you don't hit any sort of terrain when you're coming in for landing or takeoff. We also have equipment on board that tells us when we're approaching terrain. So we are informed of it. So it shows on our screen that there is some terrain that you're coming close to, and gives us warnings, and then a final, alert as well.
Why do we need to turn off phones, open window shades, and make the seat upright during takeoff and landing?
Your phone, when it's on, it constantly wants to establish contact with the tower, with the, it wants to receive the signal and it wants to send signals. It is constantly doing that. So you don't want that interfering with any navigational equipment on board. So below 10,000 feet, when the seatbelt signs come on, you're supposed to ensure that your phone is on the flight mode, and the seat's upright. I'll tell you why. So if you're leaning back, your seat is reclined. In case there is an emergency and the person behind you wants to get up and leave, he will not be able to do that easily. That is why you need to keep your seats upright, so there's no inconvenience to the passengers behind you. Below 10,000 feet above the ground, we are coming in close to landing, right? So in case there is any sort of an emergency, in case we have to land in water for whatever reason, so you need to be able to have a clear view of what is happening outside. In case there's fire, you can see it. But if your shades are closed, you will not be able to see. So yeah, so below 10,000 feet, it's crucial that you ensure that all these things are done.
Oh, I never knew that.
Mm-hmm.
Are there chances of running out of fuel, especially on long haul flights? What do you do if that happens?
There are a lot of rules and regulations in place to ensure that this doesn't happen, right? So we make sure that the weather is fine. We check the weather. We know what we have en route to your destination. If there are big clouds, if you want to deviate, you take extra fuel, so you can make sure that you cater to all these things. Plus, we are given extra fuel. Like I told you about the flight plan, it has all the fuel calculations and everything. So we cross-check that, and we have something called as final reserve fuel, which is for 30 minutes at 1,500 feet above the aerodrome, above the airport. If there is an emergency, in an emergency situation where you have a fuel leak and many things have gone wrong, there is a possibility that you start utilizing more fuel than you expected. So that is a real rarity, and we are taught how to basically avoid these situations. We're trained well on that, so we never run out of fuel. So we always land with a minimum amount of fuel that is supposed to be there on your airplane. Yeah.
Do different models of planes have same type of controls? If you know how to fly one, can you fly them all? Like it is easy to drive any car if you know how to drive?
Uh, no, Vedant. Every airplane is a little different. You need to go through certain training for a different aircraft type. So, for example, the Boeing is different, has a different control surface, from the Airbus. So every aircraft you change, you have to go through some amount of training.
Do you get bored while flying long haul flights? Do you get to listen to music or podcasts while flying?
I do get bored sometimes, yes, when the flights are really long. We are not supposed to listen to anything on the aircraft while sitting in the cockpit, and we don't. Anyway, we have a lot of work to do. We have to keep talking to the air traffic controllers who are telling us, what to do at times, and letting them know where we are and all of that, and monitoring the fuel we have. So there is work, and sometimes we just end up talking to the captain at times, and probably reading some of our manuals if at all. But that's the job, and you have to stay alert, and you can't listen to anything other than your radios.
Is listening to the radio fun?
Radio, in the sense, the air traffic, that's what I meant, air traffic controllers. You're talking to them all the time. It's fun. I mean, when it's when there's a lot of traffic congestion and you have to be really alert, and there's a lot of weather. I mean, I like it. It's fun. It's a nice thing. Sometimes the radio guys are, they wish you, and it's really nice. I like it though.
How long does it take to train to be a pilot?
To be a pilot, you need to study a little bit and clear some papers. That can take around 3 to 4 months, and then you will have to fly. Right, that takes from anywhere between 7 months to a year. It could take approximately a year and a half till you get your flying license in hand.
Wow, that's a lot. What made you choose to be a pilot? As a child, what did you want to be?
When I grew up, I was around a lot of aircraft and pilots, and that fascinated me. And yeah, I mean, this is something I wanted to do, not as a child, but probably as a teenager. What made me choose? I was very fascinated with airplanes and how this gigantic thing flies in the air. It's amazing. Even today, I mean, when I sit in the aircraft, when I'm flying passenger, I feel the same way as I used to feel when I was a child. It fascinates me even today, even though I fly this day in and day out.
What are your hobbies?
I do yoga every day. I learned French for a long time. I love listening to music. In fact, mom is teaching me a little Carnatic music also. Yeah, and I like swimming whenever I can, and that's it.
Even I like listening to music.
Yes, it's very nice.
What is your favorite food?
Chips. Oh, that is my favorite food. I think I think that's probably the first word I learned because I've loved eating chips from I don't know. It's a very long time. In fact, I'm going to make them today at home. And other than that, I love the South Indian salads. That's what I love.
Even I love chips.
Yeah, yeah. That's nice. We can share chips someday.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thank you, Vedant. It was really, really nice talking to you.
Dear listeners, follow my Facebook page, Curious Vedanth, to get updates on the upcoming episode. To listen at leisure on your phone and get notified about future episodes, subscribe by searching for Curious Vedanth wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and many more. You can also listen to my podcast on vedant.buzzsprout.com.